Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. I'm sorry?
I gave you the wrong verse, 38.
You gave me the wrong verse?
Yeah.
What's it supposed to be, 37 or 30?
I told you it's 37, it is 38. I told this morning when you
Oh,
told me,
well, I looked at this verse.
Okay.
Yeah, we're okay. Okay. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudirihet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Anashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Jamal, can you get those curtains for me? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai. That's what happens when we lock the front door. Okay. On this first day of June, 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. Chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. Text number 38. Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Nama Urja Ishe Traya Pataye Yagharetase Tripti Daya Chajivanam Namaksa Varasatmane Namaha. I offer all obeisances unto you. Uje, unto the provider of the Pitriloka. Ishe, the provider of all the demigods. Trayaha, of the three Vedas. Pataye, unto the master. Yagya, sacrifices. Retase, unto the predominating deity of the moon planet. Triptidaya, unto him who gives satisfaction to everyone. Cha, also. Jivanam, of the living entities. Namaha, I offer my obeisances. Sarva Rasa Atmane, unto the all-pervading Supersoul. Translation. So this is Lord Shiva offering his prayers to Lord Narayan. My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitrilokas as well as all the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all three Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. Srila Prabhupada's purport. When the living entity is born within this material world, especially as a human being, he has several obligations unto the demigods, unto the saintly persons, and unto living entities in general. As enjoined in the Shastras, Devarshi Bhutapta Nrinam Patrinam, Bhagavatam 11.541. Thus, one has an obligation to one's forefathers, the previous hierarchy. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so he can become free from all obligation to the pitas, the demigods, general living entities, and saintly persons, and completely engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. As stated, Devarshi bhutaptam nrinam pitrinam nakinkaro nayam hrini charajan savatmana yaksharanam sharanyam gato mukundam bhadirityakartam. One becomes free from all obligations to the demigods, saintly persons, pitas, or ancient forefathers, etc., if one is completely engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Lord Shiva therefore prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so that he can be free from such obligations and entirely engage in the Lord's service. Soma, or the predominating deity of the moon, is responsible for the living entity's ability to relish the taste of food through the tongue. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so that he will not taste anything but the prasadam of the Lord. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung a verse indicating that the tongue is the most formidable enemy among all the senses. If one can control the tongue, he can easily control the other senses. The tongue can be controlled only by eating prasadam offered to the deity. Lord Shiva's prayer to Lord Aniruddha is meant for this purpose, Tripti Daya. He prays to Lord Aniruddha to help him be satisfied by eating only prasadam offered to the Lord. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. So, we come into this world completely ignorant, and most of the time human beings stay completely ignorant. But here, if we get the blessings of the knowledge contained in Srimad Bhagavatam, we learn that we're dependent on a whole array of higher powers and higher beings, and some of them not so higher, but we're still, such as other living entities, animals, human beings, for our very existence. And therefore, this concept of being debtors is there. We are obliged. We're certainly obliged, to the sun, to the air god, the water god, Mother Bhumi. All these things are necessary, moment to moment, for our existence, for our life. And yet the modern mentality is to forget all about that and just to think that nature is automatically there and it's meant for our exploitation. And this mentality leads to the present situation, where there are huge imbalances in nature. Climate change, everyone knows about climate change. And day by day there's more and more difficulty in just providing for normal things like moderate temperature. Human beings can only live in a certain range of temperature. I was reading recently that if the temperature increases enough and the humidity is high enough, it becomes unbearable. You can't live. There's a certain limit, It becomes very hot in Vrindavan right now. It's very hot. 114 degrees Fahrenheit. But the humidity is not that high. It's dry because it's like a desert. If the humidity got up to 90%, no one could live there. No one could live there. And this is rapidly, threatening in various parts of the world. And what will happen? Well, people won't just die there. They'll move. You'll have more masses and millions and millions of refugees going, climate refugees going. Even now it's beginning. So what's the cause of that? The cause of that is a complete misunderstanding of our actual position in this world. Remember, there's these three elements of, or three stages of development in bhakti understanding. Sambandha Gyan, Abhideya Gyan, and Prayojana Gyan. One has to understand, first of all, what is our situation here? How do we come to be? What is this world? Is there a source of everything, or does it just come automatically? And if we understand there's a source, we have to understand who that is, what that is, and how it's creating, maintaining, and ultimately destroying everything. All of that Sambandha Gyan is integral to all of our Shastra. You'll find tons of it in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna gives the list of the 7 material energies. Bhumar, Apa, Olano, Vayo, Kung, Mano, Buddha, Reva, Hankari, Tiyame, Binna, Pakadadashtada. That this world is composed of solid matter, liquids, gases, fire, radiant energy, the electricity, and space. We're more and more subtle. Mind, who can deny that we have a mind that is so important to us, but no one can see it, you can't weigh it, you can't smell it, but it exists. Even more subtle, the intelligence, the discriminating factor, which is so developed in human society. And ultimately, this sense of self, the ego. So this is raw materials which are present everywhere and which we're using and abusing every day. So that's the beginning of the understanding. Understanding that this material that we have has a source, a divine source. In other words, there's intelligence behind it. It didn't come about by accident. When you think about that theory, which I think is the ultimate theory in modern science, is that all of this, by long millions and billions and trillions of years, just organized itself somehow into this complex brain of ours, and all of the other the incredible way in which nature interacts in all kinds of balance. It's really absurd when you think about it. Just to build one thing like a computer, so much intelligence involved, getting the materials together, and a history of development of knowledge. I remember when I was in Miami, that's when I first started using the computer. Computers were just coming into use, And everything was very rudimentary. We had portable computers, but that portable computer, I don't know if you remember Gopi Pranadhan and me carrying those things around, it was like 40 pounds. You carry it from room to room. They call that a portable computer. And it was, then we got, at one point we got a 10 megabyte hard drive, and we said, oh my God, this is like huge. We'll never be able to fill this up. Now we laugh, 10 gigabytes is like nothing. So, but it's a history. In other words, all of that took a lot of brain power and invention, trial and error in order to put that together, and it's gradually developed. At every step, there was intelligence there. So what we see here in the Bhagavatam, Lord Shiva is chanting this song, and he's each verse, these preliminary verses, they're all obeisances, right? It begins with Nama. He's offering us obeisances and teaching us. He himself is not an ordinary living entity. He's not even a jiva. He has a special jiva tattva. But he is taking the role of a jiva and offering his obeisances to all of these higher powers which we're dependent on and which we need to recognize. So the first one, the provider of the Pitralokas, is Pitraloka, all of the forefathers, to recognize that we've come down and that that we're indebted to them, and the demigods. How many demigods? Who can give an approximate? 33 million, of which we know a few dozen names of the leaders, right? Prabhupada is fond of pointing out, several lectures you hear, you can't even twinkle your eyes. You call it twinkling, blinking. Blinking your eyes is under the control of a demigod. Maybe a minor demigod, but it's a higher power. The point is, we can't take one step. We can't even breathe, without the supervision and the blessing of higher powers. So it's such an arrogant, ignorant position to try to think we're dominant on this earth and we can do whatever we want without repercussions. We can see the repercussions everywhere. So recognizing our indebtedness, our obligation to higher powers, is what this verse is all about. And Prabhupada immediately starts invoking this famous verse, Devarshi Bhutapam Vinam Pratinam. This is spoken, I don't know, Krishna's not speaking this. I think it's not the Yogendras. Does Krishna speak this verse? 11.5. Okay. It's definitely not part of his Uddhava Gita. because that comes a little later. So, what is he listing? Deva, the rishis, the demigods, the learned sages. That includes all our teachers. You know, elementary school, high school. You know, they work so hard to give us, you know, knowledge that we use every day, how to read, you know. Yeah, we'll find out. So, bhutas, other living beings. Now there's because of this climate catastrophe, there's a huge amount of living beings that are going extinct. Of course, they still exist on other planets, but they're gone from here. And one of the biggest problems is the insects. You know, we have so many pesticides and get rid of insects, but we depend on insects. Famously, the bees for pollination. You know, in California, they have it's like the world center for growing almonds. I don't know if you know that. They ship tons of them to China and everywhere. Huge almond trees in north here. And they require these pollination from bees. Can't do it any other way. I think the Chinese tried to grow them. They didn't have the bees, so they tried to employ human beings to pollinate, but it was completely crazy. You know, you can't, it's uneconomical. So now the bees are dying off. What do? They import. There's a whole industry where from all over the country they drive to California at just the right time, probably in the spring, and they have these pollinating bees out in the big fields. And even there's guys who, I don't know if you call them rustling the bees, they go and they steal these things that they're so valuable. But the bees are still dying, you know, because of the pesticides and because of the ignorance. So we owe the bees, we owe so many other living beings, so many human beings. We're obligated. Nuinam, people in general, the forefathers. Here, and then the verse goes on. If one surrenders to the supreme soul, Mukunda, and takes shelter of one who has taken shelter, Sharanan Sharanyam, then you're free from all your Nayam Rini. You're no longer a debtor. It's just like consolidating all your credit cards debts, you know, in one. You just have to pay one big, you know, fairly substantial bill a month, you know. And then you don't have to worry about all the other creditors. Well, that one bill that we pay is service to Krishna. Recognizing that he's the source of all of the benedictions that these other beings can give. That's central in the Bhagavad Gita. Is that right? In other words, just worship me, and you don't have to worship the demigods. And if you do worship the demigods, then you're ignorant. What is that? Kaimaistaista vritti jnana papadnyante anya devata. Tang tan niyamastaya prakatya taksaya. So the verse before that is the key verse, that one who is truly wise, who is a Mahatma, surrenders unto me after many, many births of cultivating knowledge. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam papadyate. All of this knowledge, you know, whatever kind of knowledge you're gaining, it culminates in surrender to Vasudeva Krishna, knowing that he is everything, in the sense that this is all his energy and he's the supreme control. That's real wisdom. That's surrender. That's bhakti. But kamaistaista vritti, when the knowledge is stolen away by material desires, then you start worshipping other gods and goddesses, hoping to get some material thing, forgetting that they're dependent on Krishna. And so then he has some very interesting verses, because if you expand the understanding of what worship means, you know, it doesn't have to be a god, it doesn't have to be something living even. That's why the Bible has this idea of worshiping mammon, you know, which is wealth personified. This is the demonic mentality. They declare and they believe, because it's central to their life, that there is no God in control. Asatyam apadishtam te jagadahu anishwaram aparasparasam bhuttam kimannit kamahoitikam. This is the first verse where Krishna is describing, or one of the first ones he's describing the qualities of the demons. There's no ultimate truth. There's no foundation upon which everything is built. There's no God in control. This is the atheist. They believe, they've convinced themselves there's no God. And if you challenge them, you get in trouble. Agnosticism? No. We know there's no God. That's the whole idea. So they declare it. Jagad ahu, they say. Jagad ahu is to declare. Anishadam. Then how did everything come about? By chance. Aparasparasam bhutam. Just by attraction, repulsion, atoms coming together, trillions of years, produces what we have. It's insane. But the idea is then we don't have to worry about punishment. There's no afterlife, there's nobody watching, there's nothing like that. So this is the society. Although people may give lip service to being religious, ultimately they act, and their actions belie that. So he goes on. According to the different modes they're in and their upbringing and what they've heard on the internet, they'll worship a certain god or goddess or tree or human being, for material benefit. And Krishna says, "Oh, okay, you want to worship this, that, yo yam yam, whatever you want to worship. Yo yam yam tanum bhakta shraddhayarchitam ichtati tasitasachalam shraddham tamevavadadhamatam." Now this verse is instructive because it gives us the understanding that whatever you want to do in hopes to improve or to progress in some way, you need faith. Faith. So you want to worship this god, this tree, this ghost, whatever, and you really want that, then I'll make your faith strong. I will give you the faith where you can worship. And then sataya shraddhaya, with that faith, shraddhaya yukta tasya radhanamiyate, and whatever you get or imagine you're getting from that worship, it's actually coming from me. But you've neglected, you've already rejected the idea of God. You see? So this is people are doing it all the time. They may be gross atheists, but they're worshiping, the most common thing is money and power. This is what they're really after. Money and power, and they go together. You got enough money, you got power. This is why Aishwarya and Ishwar are very closely related. What are Krishna's six opulence? Beginning with Aishwarya. What is it? Aishwarasya samagrasya. Complete. These are all complete, or full. Aishwarasya, wealth. Viryasa, Jajashakshaya, and strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation, and knowledge. So the first thing is Aishwarasya, and with enough money you have control. So Ishwara and Aishwarasya go together. So that's rampant today. There's this one guy, I'm not going to name any names, sully the atmosphere. But he's very, very rich. He became multi-billionaire by running gambling casinos in Macau. Isn't that an island off of China, right? And billions of dollars. Jewish guy. And so naturally he supports all these Jewish causes and things with his money, this politician, that politician. And he's one of the most ugly people you'll ever see. He has none of that Shriya opulence. All he's got is the Aishwara opulence. But the demons can have that for some time, just like Hiranyakashipu was so powerful, and so much wealth. His very name, Hiranya, means gold, But in the end, of course, he was brought low, as they all are. Not personally by Krishna, but by time. Eventually, they lose everything. Mrityu sarvaharaschaham. So, Krishna, the last verse in this series, he's talking about having faith in something other than me and worshipping. He says, Andavatu palam tesham tadbhavaltyalpamedasam. Only those who are alpamedasam, don't have very much brain substance, and not very intelligent. They worship in this way, something other than me, being bewildered by the material energy and moved by their own material desires. Their knowledge is bewildered. So then he has this classic line, it's practically quoted from the 9th chapter. Devan Devi Juyanti Madbhakta Yanti Mamipi. Whatever devas you worship, or whatever you're worshiping at all, money, you go there. In other words, your next life, you're more involved with that, but not necessarily in the same profile. In other words, you'll be worshiping money, but you'll be some street urchin in India trying to get a couple of rupees rather than some big, businessman in America. So the point is that what makes sense in all kinds of levels is to worship Krishna, the source of all benedictions. And therefore, you don't have to worry about worshiping this deva. You have to worship your obligations for this teacher and the rishis and all of it. Everything is taken care of. And this verse, I believe, now it brings to mind, I think Narada is speaking this, because it's right next to that famous verse, Yata Toro Mula Nishecharena. This is, Prabhupada's analogy that he gives is coming from this verse, is that just as if you water the root of a tree, all of the flowers and the tree and the fruits and the twigs and the branches are nourished. And just as if you put food in the stomach, then all your limbs and organs are nourished. Similarly, when you serve Krishna, then all of the demigods are satisfied. Remember, Shiva is saying that, and he will say, he's really satisfied when someone is pleased with someone who's a devotee of Krishna, because he's a devotee of Krishna, rather than my devotee, who often at times are demons. Seems like half the demons are devotees of Shiva, many of them, because all they want is some benediction, and they'll often misuse it and against the devotees or cause havoc. Even for me, this famous Vrakasura. So that's not pleasing. He's just, that's his habit, is to be easily pleased and to give benediction. But he's very much enlivened and pleased when he sees devotees, and that's why he's giving association to these prachetas. They're devotees, and he's giving them this wonderful song, which is full of bhakti, and you'll see near the end, it comes out even, when will I see that beautiful blackish form? He's praying to Krishna. So that's, people sometimes ask, someone wrote me a letter, isn't there some way we can worship Durga with some childhood I was worshiping Durga, and I explained, no, in Krishna consciousness we don't worship any other gods or goddesses. The gopis worshiping Katyayani for getting Krishna as a husband, that's a special case, because they don't want to worship. They don't want to worship Krishna as God. You see, that breaks the mood. They want to love Krishna. He's much more pleased with that. So he's covering them with Yoga Maya. So they and Mother Yashoda and all the other residents of Vrindavan can deal with them on a very intimate level, whether it's friends, parents, lovers, like that. So there's some worship of Katyayani there. And of course, the lesson was with the Govardhan Puja that you don't have to worship Indra either. But so the idea keeps coming up. And it's a great boon for us. What do we know of the three Vedas? We have to get into this whole, the thing of like the time and the place and the mantras. We can hardly chant Hare Krishna mantra on these simple verses. What to speak of all the precise pronunciation? And if you're offering some sacrifice to God for material benefit, oh boy, everything better be just right, or you can create havoc. One mispronunciation and you'll get just the opposite. I like to point out this Tvashta, the father of Vishwarup. He was so angry that he encouraged his son to give the demigods instruction. He became their guru because Indra had insulted Brahaspati. He left. So they became weak, and they were conquered by the demons, threatened by the demons. So Tvashta, he encourages his son takes up the role, Vishwarup. He happened to have 3 heads. And he's offering all kinds of prayers, and they have the guru. So I think Indra's hiding somewhere behind a pillar or something, is watching him, and he's offering some oblations to the demons, because on his mother's side, she was death personified or something. There's a part of his line. So Indra, which is his wont, he's accustomed to do it, he flew off the handle and immediately cut off his heads. And so Tvashta became infuriated, and he was invoking this big demon who's going to kill Indra. But he said something wrong. The grammar is so strict. The Sanskrit is such a perfect language. Instead of invoking a demon who will kill Indra, he invoked Vitrasura, who's Chitraketu inside, who's a devotee covered with a demon's body, whom Indra will kill and send back to Godhead. And so his mission was frustrated. But if you're chanting Hare Krishna and you can't pronounce the words properly, you know this story? Some of you heard it. I don't know if you heard it. Tamal Krishna Maharaj goes to China. That in itself is an incredible story. I won't tell that. He goes to China when China is completely closed off. This is like the mid-70s, and it's red china, you know. And so completely anti-religious and everything. But he suggested it, and Prabhupada accepted it, gave him the order, so there he is. So by his devotion and surrender and intelligence, he was able to actually begin ISKCON in China. So he had, you know, there's a few disciples coming here, simple people. So one fella comes, young boy I think it was, and he's troubled because Chinese have trouble with the R's, I think. Hare, Hare. So it's Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Gurudev, I can't pronounce properly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. So Samal Krishna says, don't worry, you just keep on chanting like that. Krishna will understand your sincerity. And I think he may have quoted that verse. Bhava Grahi Janardana. And to this day I haven't fully memorized the verse, but the verse is about mispronunciation. Bhava Grahi Janardana means Janardan, Krishna, he accepts our feeling. He's looking for what you're really feeling. He's not looking for the techniques and the details, you know. Dwaraka, was it Dwaraka who offered the banana peel? Someone was so absorbed in fanning Krishna or serving him that... Yeah. Anyway, so he wanted to offer a banana, but instead he offered the peel to Krishna because he was in such ecstasy. And, huh? Vidura's wife, I'm sorry. And so Krishna starts eating the peel because it's saturated with love, even though there's a big mistake there. But you can't do that with the gods. You know, it doesn't work that way. Everything's got to be. So he said, just keep chanting, you know, and try to pronounce properly and keep chanting. Everything will be fine. So he started chanting. Eventually he got it down, you know. He ended up chanting in 64 rounds, becoming very advanced devotee. You know. So Krishna is looking for the bhav. He's looking for our feeling. And that's why we're able to practice. Prabhupada, in his vast genius, he came to America where nobody knew anything, fully understanding that he was going to deal with some very raw material here. But the great benefit is that they don't know anything about Krishna. So whatever I tell them about Krishna, they'll take it. When I go to India, I know Krishna. My mother taught me about Krishna. Huh? No hodgepodge. Yeah, they get worship this, worship that. So it worked, you know, because he found some sincere people who were ready to listen to him, the submissive all reception. So this is a wonderful, verse, this Devashi Bhutapta, and Shiva is teaching here, teaching the Prachetas, the proper relationship. The Lord is everything that we rely on, whether it's the gods of all the water and the sun and the air and the moon, and many, many other things. They're all getting their powers from Krishna. And so if we can just focus on surrendering to Krishna, sarva dharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Just give up all other dharma, everything else I taught you, all about karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga. Don't worry about that. Just surrender unto me, and there'll be no sin. I'll leave you. In the previous verse, he says, you'll go back to God, you'll come back to me. Think of me, become my devotee, worship me, bow down low. You'll come to me, O friend. I promise you this boon I shall bestow. So that's where we're at. Now that's the beginning of the Bhagavatam, the CC. In other words, the surrender. Then everything opens up. The cultivation of purity, so we can experience the highest happiness, way beyond anything imagined by the impersonalists. What to speak of sense gratification. Prabhupada sometimes talked about, that there's really no happiness in this material world. There's just a little relief of the unhappiness, and we call that happiness. So we make up a graph. Rupa Goswami has at the beginning of his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu the benefits of devotional service. Very skilled. As soon as I read that, I thought, this is like a very skilled advertiser. Before giving any details about the process or anything like that, he gives the benefits. Like in advertising, it's a science. You're driving along the highway, they've got maybe 2 seconds to get your attention with a big billboard, right? And to tell you what the product is and the benefits. And so basically they usually use something very, attractive, like sex appeal. But somehow or other, to attract your attention and plant a desire, even subliminally. You may not even realize it's planted there. But the next time you want to buy insurance, maybe I'll try Geico. You saw some advertisement, You don't even know why. So that's advertising. So advertising is first, you want someone to take something, to buy something, or to take up a process. You tell them at the beginning what the benefit is. Now Prabhupada, he had that, but even beyond that, he had the process people can take up, chanting Hare Krishna, to immediately feel some of the benefit. And that opens up the receptivity to explain what's going on and how you can cultivate that so that you can expand that experience and deepen it and feel bliss all the time. Ultimate peace and ultimate happiness. People are trying to get that all the time. Even the animals and the insects. How can I be at peace, get away from all danger, and how can I enjoy? At the end is thinking, where is that sugar? That's my Shangri-La. That somebody spilled some sugar on the kitchen floor. And human beings are also trying to become as happy as possible and ward off the unhappiness. So that process was given by Srila Prabhupada, and people took it. And so now we have this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam, and Shiva is sharing with these prachetas this song, and you see it's scientifically involved here, put together. He's praying to Aniruddha, and he's going to pray to Sankarshan, Vasudeva, and Pradyumna, all of the elements of the Chatuvyuha, and then go on. And they all have a special role. I didn't get a chance when the class was, I don't know if it was yesterday or a couple of days ago, but it mentioned that Aniruddha, he's the sun god. That's the manifestation of the sun god. And he was also in charge of the mind. And Prabhupada mentions in there how the sun is so important for keeping your mind, your mental acuity. So here we are, we should spend some time in the sun and each day, if we can, to keep our mind going, because the mind is essential. So this is a practical instruction here, and for me, this is one of the most practical. Devashi bhutapta vinapatrinam, It just relieves so much anxiety. Is that I don't have to worry about obligations to this one, that one, this one, that one, And even we know ultimately it's also to our relatives, and other people who you would normally think. I remember Gopi Puranadana Prabhu. He joined up, and like all of us, he said, well, you give up everything, But one thing he had was some student debt. Even back in the old days, that was a burden. This is like 73. So he just forgot about it. Gopi Puranadana. He had graduated from college, I think Columbia or something, and he had some student debt. So he just forgot about it, He didn't know Hare Krishnas. And when you have nothing, they can't really collect anything. He was just a simple brahmachari, Hare Krishna. And so then time went on, he got married eventually. And then he needed to get some Lakshmi. And he was a very skilled computer guy. So this is like, I don't know, early 80s or sometimes, even then when the computers were starting to go, before he came down to Miami. And so he went outside and he got a job in, some computer business or something. Immediately they pounced on him. Oh, now, because you're in the system now, taxes and everything. And so they wanted to pay off his debt. It was several $1,000s, which is a lot. So the BBT handled it, So it's very practical. If you're fully surrendered unto Krishna, then you don't have to worry about your debts. Now, he was surrendered, but he had to do that. That's the idea. So I also had, I'll give you two little instances where I benefited so much from having nothing. Like Sanatana Goswami, finally, those 8 pieces of gold are gone, I have nothing. So the first one was, they both happened in L.A. actually. When we were in New York, they had so many cars. People would donate cars, they get cars. But they didn't want them to all be owned by the temple, because then insurance, whatever, there was a reason. So they would take this brahmachari, that brahmachari, and said, we need you to sign up for the car. I said, okay, whatever, he surrendered. So somehow I had to go to Washington, D.C. I don't know why, for that, I think. But I signed up, didn't think about it. Years go by. And then I come to L.A., the whole BBT moved to LA. This was in 75, probably April or May. Okay, go on then. And suddenly, the BBT tells me, there's a call for you from New York, from some insurance company. What could that all be about? I got on the phone, and Yadabar Prabhu had had an accident in that car. He actually hit somebody. I hope they weren't killed. And there was like a huge insurance claim. And since it was my car, they're trying to sue me. So, I don't have anything. You can sue me all you want. And they had to just let me go. It also happened when I had to go to the hospital. I had a staph infection. I was actually admitted to the hospital in Westwood, the LA, medical center, UCLA, for a week. And there was some special thing about it. There's still a little scar here. I recovered, obviously, but then I got this bill for over $1,000. Come and get me. I got nothing. Then the third one, also in L.A., I've been doing the laundry. Anyone who lives in L.A., it's temple. There's a laundromat nearby. A lot of devotees do the laundry. Now they have laundry in the ashram. But so I go over there, do my laundry. And suddenly I'm looking at one guy, young guy with a long coat on, and he's going from person to person. And the way he was speaking and moving, I had this idea that he was on amphetamines or something. This was even before methamphetamine. But it was like he was jacked up on something. That thought came to mind. I remember that. I said, okay, that's another thing going on. So Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then he comes to me. And he asked me a question. Did you come in a car? And it's the kind of thing that if you're not, it's either yes or no. And I said, no. I just walked from the temple. So, okay, so it goes on and on. So then my clothes are in the dryer, and I'm looking. The guy, and he's across a bank of washers, so I'm sitting down on a bench, and he's on the other side. And he asked some young guy the same question, obviously, and he said yes. And he had his back to me, but somehow I could see when he opened his coat, and he had his hand here. I said, uh-oh, he's got a gun in there. And sure enough, the kid turned white. They both walked out, got into his car, and drove off. And then I learned an hour later that there'd been a bank robbery nearby, and this guy was trying to get away. And so not having anything saved. I don't know what happened to that poor kid. So that's a whole other class, the blessings of living as simply as possible. But Krishna, he takes so much attention for the devotees in terms of protection, guiding them this way rather than that way, and he says that, he responds, if you surrender even partially, 40%, 50%, Krishna is going to give you so much protection and guidance and so many different things to help you along in your spiritual life, and also protect the material side that you need to do that. So we have to have that faith. Prabhupada certainly had it. He threw up his hands, got on that ship. There's a nice passage, sometime I'll read, I happen to come across it in my work, of Bhakti Vikas Swami, who's really a good writer. He's a very skilled writer. And he wrote this book about Prabhupada, and one of the chapters is all about him getting on that ship, getting on the Jaladuta. And he expands on it in so many ramifications. And I was just really impressed by it. And there's so many things out now that you may not ever see it, But next time, if you remind me, I think it's on here, but I'll bring it. It's well written, and you really appreciate, what Prabhupada had to do, and the state of mind and the courage he had to have to get on that ship and come to save us. This is why our debt to the spiritual master can never be repaid. And that includes Srila Prabhupada, of course, as well as our own individual spiritual master. Because they saved us from millions of lifetimes of suffering. And so much treasure, the knowledge and the mantra, everything given. All right, it's getting late. I'll read the translation. My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitrilokas as well as all the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of all three Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisance unto you because you are the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. Comments? Questions?
Tapas says Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Tapas.
What is the root of the propensity to be as powerful, as wealthy, as greedy as possible before the time of death?
Before the time of death? I don't understand.
Like, what is the root of why people desire that, like, as much as possible before they leave their body?
Well, I'm not sure what before they leave the body is. I mean, whatever you desire is before you leave the body, you know. But the root of all that is our turning away from Krishna, you know. As described, Bhayam Dutiya Bindabeshataksat Ishadapitasivapariyo Osmrti. In this verse, the Yogendra is describing the root of fear. But that's also true, you know, all of these demons and people who are total materialists, there's a real knot of fear in their heart because they're afraid that their, you know, situation, their money, their power, their very body is going to be taken away. You can't, you know, it's not a mystery, you know, that we're all going to die. So when you have such a commitment, you know, you've made such a commitment to this world, and you've piled up so much money, you know, and power, and you know that you've hurt this person, that person, you may have killed that person, you know, whatever. You've got all of that in your background. Then there's of necessity a tremendous amount of anxiety about that. So, but the root of it is rejecting our relationship with Krishna. That's the root of it. And this verse says, Vidya Benaveshita. It's very, very, you know, wonderfully described, and the purports are quite long in this portion of the 11th canto. Vidyananda Maharaj is basically just translating one commentation after another, and there are a lot of comments. You know, I'll give you the reference later. So, Vidya Benaveshita means one becomes absorbed in the material energy, and you're contemplating it, and that very loving mood toward Krishna, the prema, turns into, by that corruption or curdling, I would kind of like call it, of association with the modes of nature, it turns into kama, material desire. You want to enjoy it because you have the model of Krishna enjoying, and you're enjoying by giving him enjoyment. That's healthy and wholesome. But that enjoying mood, that ladani shakti, that enjoying energy, can also be directed toward material energy. So you become the center, you become the enjoyer. But that ladani shakti then gives all kinds of misery and pain. There's a verse like that. Because your ability to enjoy is limited and temporary, and so you're absorbed in this, and then you come into the material world. You take various bodies, one after another. Some of them human, many of them subhuman, some superhuman, and you go on and on like that until you come in contact with someone, or with the books written by someone, who can give you the other idea and tell you the root of all your suffering, and here's how you can be really happy. So the root is this rebellion against Krishna. That is the root of all of our problems. That's the original sin, if you will. And everything follows from that. Your knowledge is covered. This is the thing. You become ignorant. You forget all about Krishna. You forget all about this other world. Because we're very minute. We can easily be covered. That's the problem. And then you start your big sojourn in the material world, up and down, in different universes, different species, occasionally coming to the human form. But without the good fortune of proper association, you lose that again, and down you go. So this is, after all these, who knows how many millions of lifetimes of Brahma we've been doing this. And so now we're fortunate, at least we've ensured another human life, and we'll begin, where we left off if we don't complete the course. So we have to reform that mentality, and luckily we have these wonderful tools, beginning with the holy name, and all the other ways in which Krishna reaches out, through his great devotees. That's the most important thing. And books, and the deities, and the prasadam, and the association, and all of these things. Krishna doesn't say, here, come, take, I'm making it available to you. Don't waste time. Who knows how long it'll be here? Now that there's such social discord in America now, rioting everywhere. Who knows how long this temple will be here? You know? Grab those beads and chant with from the bottom of your heart. I want to see you now. I want to become pure now. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, not that you're going to be impatient, but the urgency, feeling the urgency. And then you can, we can experience how, yes, I worked really hard. I cooked for the feast, for this festival, and we went on. Jagannath was. I'm exhausted at the end of the day, but you're in bliss. You sacrificed. You didn't make any money. You didn't exploit anyone. Rather, you gave Krishna to so many people. That's where the real happiness is. So that you can see. This is the choice I have now. I can sink back into selfishness and my own personal pleasure. But I know the difference now. I've got an experience. So you have to keep that understanding and reject the lower temptations. So that's the answer. It's because we're minute. We have this minute independence. Krishna has infinite independence. We can choose to reject Krishna. Otherwise, there's no meaning to love. The love has to be freely given. Krishna takes that risk, if you will, emanating us in that way. So that's the answer. Best answer I can give. Okay, it's kind of late. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.